I knew I was in a competition back then. The fact is, Walt and I have been friends for a long, long time. I'm going to take you on a little story, life-changing event that happened. I had started my company. At that time, I was around 7 years old. It's just starting to turn the corner. Had a few employees. I was married with 2 children. And I was going mountain biking that day. My wife had said, why don't you come to the beach with us? It's going to be so nice out. I'm like, no, I already committed to Greg. I'm going to go mountain biking. Bad decision. So we're mountain biking. The last bridge we're going over, it didn't have sides on it. And I decided to go over it. And I went off the side of it. And I landed on my head. At that time, I couldn't turn over. I didn't know what was wrong. So I asked my buddy, I said, Greg, can you turn me over? So he did. And when they flipped me over, my arms are doing this up in the air. The only thing is there's no arms up there. 100 miles an hour, my arms are going, my fingers are moving, but I didn't see any. So I said to Greg, Greg, are my arms still attached? And he said, yeah, buddy. And I can remember this like it was yesterday. So I said, where are they? He says, they're over there. So I look, and they're laying just like this. But yet they're still doing this. You guys want to come in and have a seat? So I looked down at my legs, and my legs don't work. And I looked back at Greg, and I said, Greg, I'm paralyzed. Everything's broken. And at that time, your brain really takes over. And it's a miracle what kind of happens is you get very calm. And whereas my friend is freaking out and wanting to go get help and says, I'm gonna get help, I'll be right back. And we're in the middle of the floor in the swamp, really. And I looked at him and I said, Greg, see all those turkey vultures up there? I said, if one of them has the idea that I can't move, I won't have eyes when you get back. So you just stay right here. And he did. And at that point, I started thinking, gosh, I should have went to the beach. I was thinking my wife has to leave me because there's no way that I'm going to be a father to 2 children and a good husband to a wife if I'm a quadriplegic. And it was very clear to me that's what had to happen. And then someone's going to have to just take me away from this whole thing because I just didn't want to do it. And then I started saying my prayers. I said, Greg, I just need some minutes. So I started saying every prayer that I could remember. And then I started making deals with the Lord. And I said to him, I know I haven't been a good person, but I will be a great person. I'll pay it forward. I will do my part to make this world a better place. You just give me that chance. And like a miracle, within a few minutes, I feel this jabbing pain in my shoulder. And I said, Greg, I can feel something. The next time this happens, I'm going to try to move my arm. So it happened. I moved my arm, and it flops over there, kind of like a dead arm, but it was pretty exciting. And then it happened to my legs, and right around then, some guys had ridden up on us. Now, one thing I forgot to tell you is we didn't have cell phones. We didn't bring them like jerks. So these guys had ridden up, and they had some cell phones. They called 911, and Jackson Memorial had airlifted me to the hospital. I was in a neck brace for 6 months, and I totally believe that I was given a second chance. And now I do my best to make sure I make the best of that second chance. Thank you. So I'm Chris Palermo. I'm an entrepreneur. I'm a business owner. I'm a philanthropist. I'm a husband. I'm a father and a friend. We're going to talk about a few things, and I'm going to try to cut it as short as I can. How to be a successful entrepreneur, how to build a business, how to give back to the community, how to be a genuine person. Not going to have time to go over everything, but I want you guys, if you have a pen and paper, to take down just 3 things. One magazine, if you are interested in being an entrepreneur, that you should read religiously is Inc. magazine. And like Walt said, I'm very proud to have been on Inc.'s list of fastest growing companies in America 3 times. This year we just got it again for the 3rd time. So excited about that. But read that. And it talks about all the trials and tribulations of new business owners and how they succeed, how they make mistakes, and how they learn from them and become better. A book is my favorite book. It's called Outliers by Malcolm Gladwell. I could talk an hour on the book, but suffices to say it's one of the best business books. And I like books with stories because then it makes it a little easier to comprehend. As a C student, I like those easy reading books. So, I would say read it. And the speaker, you can find him on YouTube. He's all over the place. His name is Gary Vaynerchuk. Vaynerchuk. He's a serial entrepreneur. He made a deal that he was going to buy a professional football team by the time he's 40, and he'll probably just do it because he made that much money. But he's a great speaker, and he talks about how to build a brand and how to be successful and what he's done to be successful. So look him up and give him a half an hour, and then you might find yourself just listening to all that he has to say. So a little bit about myself. I, too, was born in Brooklyn, New York. My parents moved to South Florida when I was 4. My parents are both hairstylists. Not a whole lot of money in hairstyling, especially when you have 3 kids in a house. But they did their best. The great thing that they taught us was the value of $1, and that they weren't going to give me one. So any dollar that I needed to make it. I remember working with Walt, washing cars just to make some money. And it was a lot of different things like that. I have 2 younger brothers. Again, I was a C student, maybe C plus. But in that book that Malcolm Gladwell writes, says that it's not about the grades, it's about your drive, your common sense, and your goal setting, and how you attain your goals, how you don't give up. So I dreamed of being 2 things when I was younger. The first thing was a pro baseball player. I really thought that I was going to be that pro baseball player until I tried out for the Mariners, and I was one of the first ones cut. So it was nice to be invited to be tried out, but the next thing I wanted to be, and I didn't care how I was going to be, but a millionaire is what I wanted to be. And I remember asking my mom when I was younger, Mom, if you added all the money that you've made up from the time that you first started working to now, have you made $1 million? And I was about 8 at the time. And she said, no, we got a ways to go until we make $1 million. I said, well, what about Dad? If you have Dad's money in there, have you guys made $1 million yet? No, we got a ways to go to get there too. And I wanted to be successful. I didn't want to go through the struggles that my parents went through to put money on the table, food on the table. And I knew that I was going to start a company someday. I remember when I was 18 years old, one of the previous speaker from last year, his name's Mark Alfieri, him and I, we were in college, and we used to sell newspapers door to door. Actually, Walt did too, my wife did too. We would sell these subscriptions door to door, and I said to Mark, gosh, this place is the place, Gainesville, Florida. We can really hire a lot of people and start this business. Long story short, we got our first contract with the Gainesville Sun. We hired about 30 college-age students to work for us selling subscriptions. We're doing so well that we got another contract with the Tallahassee Democrat, the Orlando Sun, the Tampa Tribune, and next thing you know, in a couple of years, we had 80 people working for us. and that's how I was paying for my school. So I graduated in 1991. I worked for 3 telecommunications companies after I graduated. First one was AllNet Communications, second one AT&T, third Cable and Wireless. The reason I mention those companies is because I learned a couple of things along the way that made me want to start my company. So the first thing was I would tell my customers, or soon-to-be customers, you're only as good as your representative. There's so much churn in this business. Every carrier can pretty much do what they're going to say they're going to do, but if you don't have a rep that's going to be near you taking care of your business, it doesn't matter how good the carrier is because you're not going to get the experience from that carrier. And even when I was at AT&T, they called me a hunter. I would go and I'd hunt that business and I'd bring it back, but then they wouldn't let me take care of that customer. And I wanted to. So I wanted to start a company that would allow us from cradle to grave to take that customer and grow them and make them your own, one throat to choke and everything else. There's another thing that even at AT&T, you know, they have a lot of products and services, but sometimes I'd be in front of these customers and I knew that I had the product, but it just wasn't the right fit. It was like putting that square peg in the round hole. I could make it fit, I could sell that customer through the persuasion and everything else, but it just wasn't the right fit. So I needed to start that company that could give my customers the right fit. And they can get Chris Palermo or Chris Palermo's tenured staff whenever they want them. So GCN's been open for 18 years. We offer 170 carrier solutions around the world. We cater to some of the largest companies in the world. Their telecom spends are amazingly big. When I first went to start GCN, I said all I want to do is I want to sell $100,000 in monthly recurring revenue. And that doesn't mean a lot to you, but I knew that equated to $100,000 in what I would make over the course of a year if I could do that. So I set these small goals for myself, and I think for anybody that is starting a business, you really have to have goals. Not annual goals that are so far out there, but daily goals that you can attain. And one goal that I followed was the 50-point rule. I had to make 50 contacts per day, no matter what. Even that is kind of far-fetched. You come in, you really have to break that down. So I said, all right, I'd make 10 contacts, and then I would go to the water cooler that was downstairs to allow myself to get something to drink. And then on my 25th contact, then I could have lunch, but not sooner. And then by 50, I could leave. 50 might take until 7 o'clock, 6 o'clock, whatever it is. At my 50th, I could leave. If I set appointments, they were worth 10 points after I went on them. So the next day, if I had 2 appointments, I had to make 30 contacts and go on 2 appointments. But I would follow that 50 points, and at the end of the first year, instead of that 100,000, we had sold 180,000. So I'd almost done 2 years worth of what my goal was in order to get there. And then I started saying, gosh, how long will it take me to make my first $1 million? Because I still wanted to make that. And just over 4 years, just under 4 years, if you added up all the commissions, I had hit my first $1 million. And now, 18 years later, it's still a dream. I just say throwing it on the pile because the company does really well. And we just try to staff it up to, create such a great customer experience. I'm blessed to have a great wife and great kids. So a couple of things to learn, and I'll make this quick, but your parents probably tell you this, but you really have to be a genuine person. Don't act like someone that you're not. Take interest in people. If you're on an interview, speaking to a customer, where'd they go to school? How long have they lived here? Do they have a family? What are their hobbies? Where'd they go on vacation? You want people talking more than you're talking, because people like talking about themselves. So I keep a huge list of all of my customers, their anniversaries, where they went on vacation, what they like to do, kids like wakeboarding, whatever it is, I have it, because then I have a whole repertoire of what to talk about when I get my customer on the line before I even crack anything about business. And I think it's really important. So definitely do that. And always be honest. If you don't know the answer to a question, tell them that you get that answer, because people know when you're faking it. So just don't fake it. If you have a problem, don't run from it. A lot of people run from their problems. Hit it head on. You know what? I made that mistake. I apologize. I'll fix it. It'll get done. They appreciate that a ton more. So the 9-to-5 job that we know today is going away. People made that back when they were farmers, 9 to 5, because you had a lot of daylight. But now the jobs are going to be more like tasks. And 35% of the job market today is based on entrepreneurial small tasks that they get from TaskRabbit or something like that. So there's a lot of opportunity out there. You just got to realize where you're going to be looking for that opportunity. A lot of people are still interviewing, and I'm saying interviewing is a great thing because you need to get that experience. But you also can, if you have a skill, you can really get to work quickly by just working on tasks and starting a small business to make your craft a little better. That book about Malcolm Gladwell talks about you need 10,000 hours to become a master, and I think that's important. So back to my story about making that deal with the Lord. I still had to follow up on that, and one of them was philanthropy. I think it's really important that everybody gives back in one way, shape, or form. Pay it forward, just like we're doing today. A couple of things that I've done is I've raised money for the Dolphin Cycling Challenge, rode 170 miles on a bicycle and raised $40,000. Another year I learned how to dance, kind of like Dancing with the Stars, in front of 1,000 people. And I raised another $40,000 then. I was the #1 male fundraiser that year. Last year, my wife and I ran the Florida Ironman. If anyone knows what an Ironman is, you swim 2.4 miles, you ride your bike 112 miles, and then you run a full marathon. And we raised a lot of money for that also, for a lot of causes. One of the causes, two causes that are very important to me. One is called the George Snow Scholarship Fund. I don't know if any of you have ever heard of that, but with the money we raised last year, we were able to put 80 children that didn't have the means to go to school on their own to bring them and give them scholarships. It's important. We also support the 100 Black Men of South Florida for their Thanksgiving food drive. So it's my company, United States Postal Service, and Walmart. And last year we boxed 800 Thanksgiving dinners. So if anyone's interested in boxing Thanksgiving dinners this year, we're doing it on November 21st at 8 o'clock in the morning. And I'll give you the address in case you are interested in going. It's at the Publix at 18999 Biscayne Boulevard in Aventura. So it's been an honor to talk to you guys today. I'll be around for questions afterwards. Remember, this is your time. Don't take it for granted. Make the best of everything that you're learning right now, and really follow your goals. Set small goals and then attain them to the larger goals. If you want to find my company on Facebook, just look up Global Communication Networks. You can message and I'll get the message. Or you can follow us on Twitter, and our handle is @gcnsolutions.com. Thank you.